Thank you for joining me in another episode of Adaptive Men, a podcast dedicated to helping men become the best versions of themselves, or other fancy terms we'll use to try to get a little tagline in there eventually. Today, I want to talk about something that I've noticed a lot of men, myself included at some point in the past of my life, struggling, which is porn addiction, mainly explained with science where possible, mainly because a lot of people don't fully understand what is happening when a guy is having trouble dealing with porn consumption. There's plenty of other vices out there. There's alcohol consumption, video game consumption, all things like porn has its own particular proclivities and pathways as to how it goes about becoming problematic in a man's life. But understanding it a little better was pretty paramount for my ability to overcome it and repurpose that energy in different ways. And so I want to get you to unpack a couple different topics, which we're going to jump through about 4 different things here before I give you a list of how to actually start working through it. But first and foremost being, let's talk about what's actually happening neurologically in your brain, in your mind, in your subconscious. Why is this happening? So to start off with, it's not a surprise to fucking anyone that men in particular have a comparatively large sex drive. Libido, whatever you want to call it, compared to women. And there's a bunch of evolutionary reasons as to why that is, and we can get into that in a different video. But generally speaking, sexual release as well as sexual interactions and opportunities are very commonplace thought for a lot of men, especially at a younger age when you're going through your puberty years and testosterone's flooding your system. Everything is just crashing hard into your brain, trying to figure things out, understand the world a little better. Sound like a Murloc there for a second. And we don't understand how these behaviors and pathways in the brain can get dramatically reinforced through time. Very commonly, one of the most topical things you'll hear in regards to porn addiction is dopamine. We want dopamine. We just want dopamine. Guys just want dopamine. They just want sex. They want dopamine. They want whatever. And it feels good to get dopamine hits, doesn't it? Actually, that's not it at all. Ironically, it's not. Dopamine is not the reward. Dopamine is anticipation of the reward, not the reward itself. So when it comes to the brain, actually what's interesting to realize is that liking is not the same thing as wanting. In the brain, you've got several different pathways, but in this particular case, you've got what we refer to as your mesolimbic pathways, which are your dopamine pathways, and your hedonic pathways. Dopamine is the anticipation of the patterns leading up to the reward itself. Dopamine is the wanting, the reward is the liking. So very commonly what you'll see, especially if you're a man dealing with pornography addiction and usage right now and you're having a hard time breaking it, if you sit down and start journaling, you'll be pretty surprised, maybe not too surprised, but you probably have a ritual around it. You probably have patterns that you do leading up to it in certain circumstances in your life that causes you to want it. It could be maybe when you come home from work, you're stressed out. Maybe when you're at work and your office is closed and you're by yourself and you're stressed out, you get into bed, you have a particular website you like to go to. You prefer to use your phone in the bathroom with the lights turned off, with the door closed, or maybe the door stays open with the lights turned off. Whatever it is, you've got a pattern around it. You've got things you do that leads up to the moment of opening up the porn to then use it to try to get sexual release, start masturbating, whatever it may be. And it's not that you're craving more. You are craving dopamine, but that's not the actual hit of satisfaction at the end. That's not the liking. That's the wanting going on. So dopamine is not the reward. It's actually the anticipation of the reward. Secondly, dopamine has something very insidious about it, which if you've ever been to a casino, certain gamblers know extremely well, is that dopamine has something referred to as a variable reinforcement schedule. What this means is that if you did the same activity and got the exact same reward every single time, you'd get bored of it pretty quickly because it becomes too predictable. Human beings are novelty-seeking creatures. This is why we say things like variety is a spice of life. If I gave you a button and I said, if you push the button, you'll get a cookie. Every time you push the button, you'll get one cookie. After a while, you'd maybe get addicted to pushing the button to get the cookie, but it would get a little bit repetitive and boring or whatever it may be. If I said to you, and you would get a certain amount of dopamine that your brain would hit off in response for the first few times of hitting the button to get the cookie, after a while, it wouldn't give you the same dopamine hits anymore. It would actually subside a little bit. However, if I said to you, if you push this button, you have a 1 in 10 chance of getting a cookie. And you press the button and you don't get a cookie. And then all of a sudden your dopamine spikes. And then you press the button again, you still don't get the cookie. And then the dopamine spikes again. And you all of a sudden turn number 3, you get the cookie. Holy shit. Fuck yeah, I got a cookie. Amazing. You get a massive hit of dopamine. And then it just resets back down. The problem here is that as anticipation builds, the relative amount of dopamine stacking up in your system is building as well. And then when the moment happens and you get that pleasurable release of getting the cookie, having an orgasm, whatever it is you're trying to do, hitting the slot machine and getting a win, your dopamine has to reset. And when it resets, it's going to reset and it's going to crash below baseline. Baseline being just how you feel generally, which is very commonly why you see things like you get anticipation for the event itself, which is builds and builds and builds. So imagine you came home from work one day as a guy and your wife gives you that kind of special side eye, the weird wink you just did. And she's kind of hinting at you like, you and I are going to have a little bit of fun later on. Your brain goes fucking nuts with all, because it's that anticipation again. You're looking forward to that thing happening later on because you know it's coming. You're anticipating. You don't know when exactly, but you do know at some point within the near-ish future, something good is going to happen. And so this is part of the reason why pornography websites will have such a wide variety of different types of content. It's partly because, yes, you're going to get bored of things quickly and you need some variety, but also partly because you don't know which video or which piece of content, whichever it's going to be, is going to be the one that really gives you what you're looking for, if you even really know what you're looking for. And so we get this a lot in terms of pornography addiction, is that you're chasing the high of trying to figure out which is going to be the one that you want. And it just, you actually get more addicted to it the more variety you have within those contexts of things you can start doing through. Number 3, the Coolidge Effect and sexual novelty. The Coolidge Effect is a fancy scientific term actually referencing President Calvin Coolidge, who's a previous U.S. president, who, for a variety of reasons, I'm not going to go into right now. Basically, what the Coolidge Effect says is that sexual arousal within people tends to reset faster when there's sexual novelty. So if you're a man and you had an opportunity to, let me say if you're a man, this is something that's been tested extensively in like lab rats. We've seen it in many different species that have sexual dimorphism, male, female, that if you take a male who's able to reproduce and you put him in the presence of a sexually receptive female, and he does his thing, he gets excited, he does his thing, he's got to cool off afterwards. If you leave him in the same area with that female for a long period of time, he might copulate with her again, but the interval of time in between sexual interactions actually gets longer and longer and longer. So the first time they have intercourse, it might be 5 minutes until he's aroused again. But then they do it again, then it's going to be 15 minutes until he's aroused again. And if you do it again, it's going to be 25 minutes until he's aroused again. And that time period gets longer and longer and longer. The Coolidge Effect is such that if you were to have that same male of any species that engages in the Coolidge Effect activity, sexual variety and sexual novelty, if you took that same male, had him copulate with that particular female, remove that female in and put in a brand new one that he had not been with before, the amount of time needed to get sexual arousal going again is dramatically reduced. So it might be 5 minutes to female number 1, take her out, put another female in, 5 minutes female number 2, take her out number 3, 5 minutes, and he just can keep going and going until he basically just burns out. This has been something that's been observed across many different species. And by the way, it occurs with women as well as men too. So it's not just a male-only thing. But in the case of pornography, the problem here is that modern day pornography has a near infinite variety of content. You have no shortage of sexual novelty that you can actually engage in. And your brain does not know the difference between the fact that this is not an actual female in the room with you, but it's still tricking those same exact old evolutionary pathways into thinking it is. And this is why you can have days where you can just use pornography and masturbate several times in a day, like back to back at times. Like you just like, especially when you're younger in your early, your prime years, this might be something you can just go through over and over and over. And this same exact problem is that you keep reinforcing with those dopamine pathways this behavior, that ritual, whatever it is that you were doing, over and over and over again. You keep getting enough variety to keep re-engaging that dopamine system, to keep reinforcing itself with, again, that same little bit of variability. You're not exactly sure which one it's going to be, but you know it's in there somewhere, so you're just going to keep chasing after it. And the last piece we'll talk about before we jump into the actual ways we can start dealing with this stuff is sympathetic nervous system stress relief and attachment. Sympathetic nervous system basically means fight or flight. When you're stressed out, you want to find ways to try to de-stress depending on what it is you're actually stressed out about. When you're relaxed, parasympathetic nervous system. So your mind can figure out over time, there are certain things that I can do that will actually get me to calm down and get me to relax. There are certain behaviors that I can reinforce using my dopamine pathways to remind my subconscious and my memory in the past ways that I can calm myself down and get that stress release. Some people, it might be alcohol, it might be doom scrolling, it might be video games, pornography in this case, it might be work, it might be exercise, it's a million different things. People can get addicted to all types of things, and they can essentially get attached to it. They can become subconsciously attached to this particular outlet as a means of emotional and nervous system regulation. This is where the attachment part comes into play. Meaning that if you've engaged with enough porn over a long enough period of time, you've got that same reward, same anticipation of the rewards going. You've got that variable reinforcement schedule going, and you have the Coolidge Effect going off of infinite variety of pornography use and the sexual novelty. Anytime you're stressed out, your brain will basically try to convince you, hey, based on past experiences, the last time I was stressed, you used one of these things to get me to calm down. So I'm going to try to convince you to use this again to get that stress relief. Because right now, for whatever reason, you're stressed from work, you're stressed with, oh boy, here's my cat. You're stressed from maybe you had a tough conversation with a spouse, tough conversation with a family, something's going on with financially, whatever it is that's causing you stress. If you've reinforced these pathways over and over and over again repeatedly for a very long time, it's not unheard of to think that your brain's going to start making the connection. Okay, if I'm stressed out, my sympathetic nervous system is activated, I need stress relief, I'm going to go to the thing that I've used repeatedly in the past, that I've reinforced with this dopamine, to actually start to calm down. And then with enough time and effort, you actually can become attached to these things. We actually can become attached to this as a means with which to calm down. When you're a child, you attach to your parents. When you're a baby, you attach to your parents as the means with which you use to calm yourself down, because you don't have emotional self-regulation built into your system yet. You're still not there yet. It takes a long time, a lot of practice to practice emotional self-regulation and behaviors. It's not unheard of in this case is that you can actually become attached to external things. This is where this is part of the root of addiction. Right here, this is not even just porn addiction, but just addiction in general. This is the major part of the root of addiction, is that you attach to a different external source of nervous system stress relief and regulation. So then you might be wondering, okay, as a man, how do I quit porn with science? This is going to be a couple different tips and tricks you can try depending on your circumstances. It might be a little bit more complex depending on what you're going through, but generally speaking, this is a good place to at least start. Number one is a straight, simple dopamine detox with something we refer to as urge surfing. Dopamine detox quite literally means cutting out the activity to the best of your ability, putting up guardrails to protect yourself from access to these things. For example, I have a bit of a sweet tooth. I fucking love sugar and junk food. I have since I was a kid. It's been a thing I've been dealing with for a long time. I don't keep any in my house. I don't keep it in my apartment. It's if I want sugary goodness, I have to get out of my apartment, go to my car, and drive down the block to the grocery store or the local convenience store to actually get sugar. Finding ways to create friction between you and the activity is a way to start improving the odds that you're not going to lapse back into the activity itself. So saying to yourself, I'm not going to watch porn anymore is easy, but the actual urges themselves can be very powerful, very potent when they hit your system. Especially when you get stressed out, you're going to want to go back to what you're familiar with what works. So it could be downloading apps that help to put up guards so that you're not allowed to actually access the porn. There's plenty of apps out there to do this. It could be telling somebody else. We'll get to that in terms of externalizing some accountability. Finding ways to basically say, I'm just not going to do it, and I'm going to consciously make an effort to not do it when it comes. However, the feeling is going to hit you. It's going to take time to retrain these very dense dopamine pathways in your brain to get a different result, in which case we get what we refer to as urge surfing. Urge surfing basically means when that urge comes along, you're going to try to pick a new activity such as meditation, standing, doing exercise, going for a walk, whatever it is, but noticing it, but don't succumb to it to the best of your ability, depending on how powerful the addiction is. It could be extremely difficult, but just saying, I'm noticing an urge to go open up some porn and go jerk off, go masturbate, whatever it may be. I'm noticing it. I want to, but I'm going to sit here and I'm going to wait to see as long as I can until it passes. Because odds are it probably will, given time. No, so it probably will. It will. If you give it enough time, it will just pass through your system. It may come back later on, but each time you're able to let the urge move through you and almost ride the urge in a way by surfing on top of it, rather than listening to it and reinforcing it. Because the reinforcement is when you actually do the activity that the dopamine triggers are telling you to do. When you voluntarily decide not to do it, you actually are laying down new pathways of when you get stressed to not go down it again. You get better and better at riding that urge until it starts to diminish bit by bit by bit by bit. Number 2, practice alternative self-regulation. What do I mean by this? What I mean is that oftentimes the urge and the need for something like pornography usage can be related to something that's stressing you out. You're feeling stressed. You could be stressed. You could be bored. You could be feeling agitated. You could be something could be coming up in your system that's been there for a long time you haven't really dealt with. Finding alternative methods of self-regulation, because oftentimes pornography usage, and especially things like masturbation, tend to be things we use to calm ourselves down via self-regulation. When your nervous system gets aroused and agitated, you're looking for ways to try to calm yourself down. That could, again, be junk food, alcohol, pornography, video games, doom scrolling. There's a million different things you can do to calm yourself down, but ideally finding a practice that is healthy. So you might say, whenever I get the urge to watch porn, instead I'm going to do 25 push-ups. I'm going to sit down. I'm going to meditate. I'm going to go for a walk. I'm going to turn my phone off voluntarily. I'm going to literally turn my phone off, whatever it may be. I'm going to just try to find a way to self-regulate in an alternative way, rather than using the porn as the self-regulation, using something different to actually self-regulate. Number 3, if you're having some serious difficulties, externalizing some accountability. You don't want to put this entirely on somebody else as the barrier with which you're going to be to try to stop yourself from doing it. But finding people in your life, you could maybe join a men's group, join a porn detox group. There's plenty of groups online. You can get a WhatsApp group. You can have friends local to you. If you have somebody in your life that you can openly confide in and say, listen, I'm having some trouble right now getting this out of my system. Hopefully you're not going to judge me for it and shame me for it. But for whatever reason, I may be having some difficulties in that. So finding people in your life that you can act as your external accountability. And there's a whole thing, it's a future episode, to talk about how accountability actually is like a feature. External accountability is a feature, not a bug of human behavior. But surrounding yourself with people or getting people in your life that will act as a part of your accountability structure, where you're going to say, I'm going to work on it myself. I'm going to be the one urge surfing this. I'm going to be the one doing the meditation and the detox and things like that. But I might need a little extra support in the form of somebody outside of me that I can confide in to talk with, that I'm having trouble with this and I need some accountability, some help doing it. And then number 4, It's a bit different in regards to the attachment thing. Identifying your hidden patterns and some of your traumas. Trauma is one of those words that no guy ever likes to hear nowadays. It's such a hot topic of a buzzword. But realistically, you probably have some behaviors and patterns that you fall into in your life, in your relationships, in your behaviors, in your day to day activities, whatever it may be, that you're still subconsciously playing out that is leading to the stressful situations that is leading you to want to go to the porn in the first place or whatever your addiction may be. In this case, we're talking about porn. Identifying those patterns could be something like journaling and sitting down and saying, okay, I relapsed today. I watched some porn. I masturbated to it, whatever it may be. What happened up to that point? What's happened today? What's happened the day before? What has been going on in my life? Am I stressed out about my finances? Am I stressed out about my day-to-day activity? Am I, having problems in my relationship with my significant other? Is my job causing me stress? Am I eating clean? Am I sleeping well? There's something that's bothering me. And that can really tie into sometimes with traumatic experiences and traumas, given that sometimes what we can do as human beings is use these kind of behaviors, these kind of external outlets as a means of managing undigested experiences. You might have a lot of emotion locked up, anger, rage, frustration, sadness. You're going through grieving. Somebody passed away. You just lost your job. Your girlfriend just broke up with you. Whatever the thing may be, to some degree, this may be a mildly traumatic experience to your system. Identifying what it is a huge step in actually going about figuring out what are the healthier ways of self-regulating myself through this so I'm not reinforcing and creating new patterns that are going to lead me back to using pornography again. So that's it in a nutshell. Dopamine detox, try to start urge surfing, riding the waves, recognizing it but not succumbing to it. Finding a list of alternative ways of self-regulating. Could be breath work, could be yoga, could be exercise, whatever it may be. Externalizing some amount of accountability. Maybe you need to surround yourself with people in your life and people that actually can help support you through this. And identifying those hidden patterns and traumas that may be reinforcing the loop in the background to start working through getting out of these behavior loop that you've created thus far. If this resonated with you, do me a huge favor, hit the subscribe button, leave me a comment, tell me what you like and maybe what you didn't like, if I can improve something for next time. If this resonated with you, or maybe you think somebody you know could really benefit from this, share it with somebody who knows it. Word of mouth, it really, really helps me get the channel to grow and helps this thing start taking off the ground. Thank you so much. I'll see you next time. Have a good day.